Gloria Whitaker was 62 years old when she met the man who would change everything. A retired nurse from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Gloria lived a quiet, comfortable life in the same small home where she had raised 2 children and buried her husband of 35 years. Her days were slow but steady. Morning tea on the porch, Sunday church service, and monthly book club meetings with the same group of women she'd known since the 80s. By all accounts, Gloria was content. Not lonely, just settled. That changed the day she met him. Derek Coleman was 26. Young, striking, and full of restless energy. A drifter from Louisiana, he had moved from city to city, state to state, chasing work and dodging baggage. He had no degree, no permanent job, no family he spoke of, but he had charm. He had smooth skin, dark eyes that seemed to study you when he smiled, and a way of making people feel like they were the only one in the room. And when he walked into Gloria's life, he made her feel something she hadn't felt in years. Noticed. They met online, through a Christian pen pal group, a virtual space where lonely hearts exchanged testimonies, prayers, and reflections. Gloria had only joined after being pushed by her church friends. She posted a short message about grief, aging, and faith. A few days later, Derek sent her a private message. "Your words touch me. You sound like someone who really understands life." It began innocently. Messages turned into late-night calls. He told her about his rough childhood, his dreams of one day starting a nonprofit for troubled youth. He said she reminded him of the strong women who had raised him, the kind of woman he wanted to build a life with. Within weeks, he was calling her Angel, texting her "Good morning, beautiful," and signing every message with hearts. Gloria's friends were stunned. Her daughter, Danielle, was alarmed. "He's 26, Mama," Danielle warned. "You're not thinking straight. This isn't love. This is something else." But Gloria was defensive. Derek made her feel alive, young, wanted. For the first time in over a decade, someone was listening to her, really listening, and speaking to her heart. She brushed off Danielle's warnings as jealousy or ageism. "Love doesn't come with rules," she told her friends. "And God doesn't give second chances for no reason." After just 2 months of video calls and emotional confessions, Derek said he wanted to come visit. He had a job lead in Mississippi, he claimed, and he wanted to be closer to her. Gloria offered to let him stay in her guest room just until he found his footing. But by the time he arrived, bags in hand and roses tucked beneath one arm, there was no pretense of sleeping separately. He moved in that night. From the beginning, people talked. Neighbors noticed the age gap. They whispered behind her back, questioned her judgment. Her church friends quietly pulled away, and Danielle refused to come around while that man was there. But Gloria didn't care. She was in love. Derek cooked for her. He rubbed her feet. He called her his queen. 2 weeks after he moved in, he proposed. The ring wasn't expensive, just a silver band with a small stone. But the gesture overwhelmed her. He got down on one knee in their backyard garden, beneath the dogwood tree her late husband had planted years ago. Gloria said yes through tears, her hands trembling as he slid the ring onto her finger. She didn't care what anyone thought. Not anymore. They were married the following weekend. No lavish church wedding. Just a small backyard ceremony with a rented arch, a handful of fold-up chairs, and a preacher from Craigslist. Derek wore a white suit. Gloria wore pale lavender. Only when her friends showed up. Danielle didn't come. But to Gloria, it was perfect. A fresh start. Behind closed doors, though, things were already shifting. Derek began taking more control over her schedule, her finances, her home. He installed new locks, canceled her book club meetings, suggested she remove Danielle from her emergency contacts, claiming she was too negative, too jealous. He said he wanted to protect their peace. Gloria, wanting to preserve her fairy tale, agreed to everything. Slowly, her world became smaller. He took over her computer, set up passwords she didn't know, told her not to answer calls from unknown numbers. He even convinced her to list them on her checking account. "It's just easier this way," he said with a smile. "We're a team now." And yet, Derek never did get a job. Every lead he followed seemed to fall through. He stayed home most days, watching TV, or tinkering with Gloria's car. But he always had money for new clothes, expensive cologne, and long nights out with friends she never met. When Gloria asked where he was going, he'd kiss her forehead and say, "Business, baby. You wouldn't understand." There were moments, short flickers, when Gloria's doubt peeked through, when she noticed money missing, when he snapped too quickly, when he grabbed her wrist a little too hard during an argument about bills. But she told herself it was just stress. Young men didn't always know how to express themselves. And besides, he loved her, didn't he? As the weeks wore on, her smile dimmed. Her once colorful Sunday dresses were replaced with loose housecoats. Her porch, once filled with flowers and bird feeders, now sat barren. People began to notice. Danielle drove by one evening and saw her mother staring blankly out the window. She called. No answer. 3 months into marriage, something inside Gloria seemed to vanish too, just like the laughter, just like her friends. And then one crisp October night, Derek did too, without warning, without explanation, without a trace. But that was only the beginning. For the first few weeks after the wedding, it seemed like Gloria was living in a dream, or at least that's how she told it. Mornings began with fresh coffee waiting at her nightstand, prepared by Derek with just the right amount of sugar and cream. He'd hum to himself in the kitchen while making breakfast, call her baby girl in a soft voice, and kiss her cheek like they were teenagers in love. To anyone looking in from the outside, Gloria had found her miracle. But that honeymoon phase, if you could even call it that, was more like a carefully staged performance. Behind the scenes, Derek Coleman was laying down roots in Gloria's life. Not out of love, but control. He had no job, no ambition, and no interest in building anything with her. What he did have was access to her accounts, her property, and her blind trust. It wasn't long before Gloria's bank transactions began to spike. New charges from online retailers, $300 withdrawals from local ATMs, unexplained purchases from stores she never shopped at. Gloria, once meticulous about her finances, stopped checking her statements altogether. Derek told her not to worry. "You've worked hard your whole life, baby," he'd say, rubbing her shoulders. "Let me take care of things now." He changed her passwords. He deactivated her Facebook account after some toxic people kept messaging. He intercepted her mail. To her daughter, Danielle, it was a flashing red alarm, but Gloria wouldn't hear it. Every time Danielle called, her mother brushed off her concerns, her voice light but distant. "You gotta stop judging him. He's not like your daddy, I know, but that doesn't mean he's a bad man." Danielle tried to come by in person once. She stood on the porch and knocked for 5 full minutes before Gloria finally opened the door. Her mother looked thinner, pale. Her robe was inside out, and her eyes darted nervously as she whispered, "Now's not a good time." In the background, Derek's voice thundered from inside the house. "Who the hell is that? You let them just knock on our door like we some damn charity case." Danielle didn't stay. She left shaken, her heart thudding with dread. Inside, Derek's mask had begun to slip. He stopped pretending to be attentive. The compliments faded. The gestures of affection were replaced with criticism. Her cooking was too bland, her clothes too old, her hair too dry. He called her slow, clueless, and, on one occasion, a wrinkled old bat. When Gloria flinched, he'd quickly soften his voice, kiss her hand, and blame it on stress. "I just want what's best for us," he'd say. "You know I love you, but you gotta listen sometimes, Glo." And she did. She listened when he said her church friends were fake. She nodded when he told her Danielle didn't care about her, that she only wanted to control her money. She even agreed when he convinced her to rewrite her will, naming him as sole beneficiary. He said it was just in case anything ever happened, and he promised he'd take care of her home and legacy if she passed before him. It was manipulation, cloaked in sweet talk and tears. Derek spent his nights out, sometimes gone until dawn, claiming he was meeting with real estate investors or working on hustles to build their future. He always had an excuse. Gloria never questioned him out loud. But doubt began to eat at her. She started waking up in the middle of the night, wondering what she'd done, who this man really was. But then he'd come home with flowers or kiss her on the neck and say, "Ain't Nobody ever made me feel like this. You're my home now." She wanted to believe him. She needed to believe him, because if she didn't, the alternative was too painful to face. But others weren't buying the act. Their neighbor, Mrs. Flanders, a retired teacher who had known Gloria for 20 years, told police later that she'd heard things. Loud arguments, furniture being thrown, and once, a loud smack followed by silence. When she called to check on Gloria the next day, Derek answered and told her to mind her damn business. Around that same time, Gloria stopped going outside. Her porch, once filled with sunflowers and bird feeders, was now dusty and bare. Her car stayed in the driveway for weeks. And on Sundays, instead of dressing in her usual lavender and lace for church, she stayed inside, curtains drawn. Whatever happiness had bloomed in those first days was gone, replaced with shadows. One evening, Mrs. Flanders saw Gloria walking to the mailbox with a limp. A fresh bruise colored the left side of her face, and she wore sunglasses even though the sun had long gone down. When asked what happened, Gloria smiled too quickly. "Oh, just slipped on the kitchen floor. I'm so clumsy lately." It was the same story she told her cousin Ruth when she visited. The same story she told the church elder when he called to check in. But the sparkle in her voice had dulled. Her once confident tone now sounded rehearsed. Flat. Then came the money. Gloria's retirement savings began draining rapidly. Over $25,000 vanished from her accounts in just 2 months. Most of it went to cash withdrawals and transfers into an account under Derek's name. When the bank flagged the activity, Derek answered the verification call and insisted it was all part of a joint investment strategy. Gloria sat beside him, silent. Her life, her autonomy, her identity, it was all dissolving. And still, no one could reach her. Danielle filed a wellness check with the police. Officers showed up, knocked on the door. Derek answered shirtless, smiling wide. "She's fine, officer. Just feeling under the weather. You want to see her?" They did. Gloria appeared moments later, pale and thin, nodding along as Derek spoke for her. "She's just got a little flu. But we're good, thank you." She waved weakly. The officers had no cause to investigate further. But Derek had noticed the way they looked at him. That night, neighbors reported hearing shouting again. Something glass broke. A dog barked wildly down the street. And just like that, the house went silent. The next morning, Gloria didn't collect her mail. And 3 days later, Derek Coleman vanished without a trace. No note, no goodbye, no suitcase. Gone. But what looked like a mystery was far more complicated than anyone realized. And the truth was only beginning to surface. It was a Tuesday morning in late October when Gloria Whitaker picked up the phone and made a calm but chilling call to the Hattiesburg Police Department. Her voice trembled, not from panic, but from a carefully measured tone of concern. "Yes," she said. "I'd like to report my husband missing. Derek Coleman. He left the house Friday night and hasn't come back since." Detective Aaron Mills took the call and jotted down the details. He'd heard dozens of missing person reports over the years, but something about this one felt different. "How long have you been married, ma'am?" he asked. 3 months, Gloria said softly. "We haven't had any problems, nothing serious. He just said he needed some air and never came back." It didn't add up. Men walk out. Husbands leave. It happens. But they usually take something with them. A wallet, a car, a backpack, a suitcase. Derek left nothing. His wallet sat untouched on the kitchen counter. His phone was still charging beside the bed. Even his favorite black leather jacket, the one Gloria said he never went anywhere without, was hanging on the coat rack. He was just gone. The responding officers were polite, careful, respectful. They took her statement, walked the property, asked routine questions. Gloria answered them all, her hands folded, eyes dry, tone composed. "We'd argued a little that day," she admitted. "About money, about Danielle, my daughter." He said he felt like nobody trusted him. He just walked out. But behind her neat responses, something didn't sit right. Detective Mills asked if there had been any signs of forced entry, any threats, anything that might make her believe Derek was in danger. Gloria shook her head. Nothing. Just silence. Still, something in her expression, blank, distant, almost rehearsed, left the officers unsettled. They filed a report, listed Derek Coleman as a missing person, and began the search. But it wasn't long before the case began twisting into something else. Within 48 hours, Mills began to uncover fragments of a life Derek had left behind. Fragments that hinted he might not be a victim, but something far more complicated. Derek had no social security number on file in Mississippi. His last known address in Louisiana was linked to an abandoned motel. His fingerprints, when checked through national databases, flagged petty crimes. A misdemeanor for check fraud in Baton Rouge, a restraining order filed in Shreveport, and 2 separate identities used in Atlanta. The man Gloria married was not just a mystery. He was a master of deception. But even con men don't vanish without a trace. That's when the story took its first chilling turn. A neighbor, Mr. Randall, reported something he hadn't thought much of at first. He recalled seeing Gloria late at night, 2 days before she called police, alone in her backyard, wearing gardening gloves and dragging something heavy wrapped in a black tarp toward the shed. "I figured it was just garbage," he told officers. "Didn't think nothing of it, till I saw them cops show up." The police obtained a warrant. Gloria stood on her porch, arms crossed, as detectives fanned out across the property. Her eyes followed them, unreadable. She didn't ask questions. She didn't object. In the shed, they found gardening tools freshly cleaned, a shovel scrubbed spotless, a tarp rolled up in the corner, still damp with a strange chemical smell, but no sign of Derek. Then came the dogs. Cadaver dogs brought in by the state search team circled the backyard several times before alerting near the base of the dogwood tree. The same tree where Gloria and Derek had said their vows just 3 months earlier. The soil beneath was soft, loosened, recently disturbed. Detectives dug 3 feet down, but what they uncovered wasn't a body. It was a burnt pile of fabric, part of shirt with monogram D, and charred fragments of something metal, later identified as the remnants of a cell phone battery. No blood, no bones, no clear evidence of death. Still, the scene was disturbing enough to raise red flags. Inside the home, investigators found even more troubling clues. A journal belonging to Gloria, buried beneath old tax papers in her bedroom drawer, contained entries in shaky handwriting. One read, "He watches me sleep. Stand by the door at night. I think he's using me. But I can't lose him, not again. Not like Harold." Another read, "If he hits me again, I swear to God I'll end it." There were no entries after October 21st. The same night, Derek disappeared. Detective Mills returned to Gloria with the journal in hand. "Care to explain this?" he asked. She didn't flinch. "I wrote those when I was angry," she replied. "People say things in journals. Doesn't mean I did anything." When asked about the burned items in the backyard, she shrugged. He said he wanted to get rid of old clothes. Maybe he did. I don't know. The forensic lab later confirmed the burnt shirt matched fibers found in Derek's suitcase. But there was still no body, no murder weapon, no digital trail. Derek's bank account remained untouched. His phone stayed powered off. His social media, sparse as it was, sat frozen in time. It was as if he had been erased. Some officers believed Gloria knew more than she let on. Others thought maybe Derek had planned this, staging his own disappearance to escape debt or legal issues. After all, men like him knew how to vanish. And Gloria? Maybe she really was just a pawn in his twisted game. But Danielle wasn't convinced. She confronted the lead investigator in person. "My mother didn't do this," she insisted. "She couldn't. But I know something bad happened. And if you don't find him, she's going to die with whatever secret she's carrying." 3 weeks after the disappearance, the case made the local news. Photos of the mismatched couple, Gloria in her lavender wedding dress, Derek flashing his $1 million smile, flooded the screen. Reporters speculated, neighbors gossiped, and still, Gloria remained silent. No one could prove a murder had occurred, but no one could prove he left willingly either. All that remained were whispers, ashes, and the slow unraveling of a woman once full of light. And somewhere, beneath the silence, was a truth clawing its way to the surface. The disappearance of Derek Coleman had turned from a simple missing persons case into something far darker, a maze of contradictions, secrets, and quiet terror hiding behind the walls of a small Mississippi home. And Gloria Whitaker, the soft-spoken 62-year-old woman who once seemed like a victim of love, was now at the center of a mystery no one could ignore. Detective Aaron Mills was no stranger to complicated cases, but something about this one gripped him tighter than most. Maybe it was the way Gloria looked at him, calm, unreadable, as if she had already rehearsed every word. Or maybe it was the way Derek had left everything behind, right down to his shoes. People don't just vanish, not without reason, not without leaving echoes. Mills knew they were missing something, and so he did what good detectives do. He went backward. He started by reconstructing Derek's final week. Security footage from a nearby gas station showed Derek buying cigarettes and a six-pack of beer 2 nights before he vanished. He looked tired, agitated. The clerk, when questioned, said he remembered Derek because he snapped at him when the card reader glitched. He looked like he'd been in a fight, the clerk said. Bruise on his cheek. Told me to mind my business. Then there was the call. Records revealed Derek had made a 5-minute phone call to a woman in Baton Rouge just hours before his disappearance. The woman, 31-year-old Camille Hayes, turned out to be an ex-girlfriend, and not just any ex. She had filed a restraining order against Derek in 2021 after he allegedly stole money from her and threatened to ruin her life. When she broke things off, when detectives reached out, Camille was blunt. If he's missing, it's not the first time he's pulled something like this. But if he pissed off the wrong woman again, maybe he finally got what he deserved. Her statement hit a nerve. Mills began wondering, what if Gloria wasn't the only victim? What if she had discovered what Derek really was and snapped with no direct evidence of murder? The investigation turned forensic. Crime scene analysts returned to Gloria's property with specialized equipment, ground-penetrating radar, luminol kits, and chemical analysis tools. They began with the backyard, focusing on a dogwood tree where the burned clothing had been found. That's when they found it, nearly 5 feet underground, far below the initial search level. The radar picked up a hollow disturbance in the soil. It took hours of careful digging, but what they unearthed made every investigator pause. A heavy, sealed plastic container, roughly the size of a small trunk. Inside was a thick black trash bag, and inside the bag was blood. Not a body, not remains, but blood-soaked towels, Derek's monogrammed shirt fully intact and drenched, and a large kitchen knife with a broken handle. The serial number on the blade matched a set Gloria had purchased only 2 months prior. On the inside of the container lid, stuck in a thin smear of dried fluid, was a single fingerprint, later confirmed to be Gloria's. Still no body, still no smoking gun, but the picture was forming. A forensic test revealed the blood was a 99.9% match to Derek Coleman. The amount? Enough to suggest a fatal wound. Prosecutors now had grounds to call this what it had begun to look like all along, homicide, but motive was still murky. Gloria didn't confess. She didn't deny. She simply said, "I don't remember anything like that." Detective Mills wasn't buying the amnesia act, so he took another route. He went through Gloria's devices, this time with digital forensics specialists. Though Derek had deleted most of the browser history weeks before his disappearance, a few fragments had survived, cached images and autofill data that painted a chilling story. Searches from Gloria's laptop included how to make someone disappear without getting caught, bleach versus ammonia cleaning blood, Mississippi self-defense law against spouse, how long before missing person is declared dead. Most were searched late at night, around 2 or 3 a.m. days before Derek went missing. And then one final search, time-stamped just hours after Derek was last seen. Can you be arrested for murder without a body? That was the crack they needed. Detectives returned to Gloria one last time, not with kindness, but with evidence. They laid everything on the table. The journal, the bloody towels, the internet searches, the fingerprint. Gloria stared down at the photos, her lips trembling slightly. For the first time, Her voice cracked. "He said he would kill me," she whispered. He said I was just a bridge. That once he drained me, he'd be gone, and he laughed when I begged him not to leave." "Did you kill him?" Mills asked gently. "I don't remember," she said again. "I just remember the knife, and the smell, and silence." They pressed her for more, but she shut down, folding back into herself like a paper doll with no more creases to show. The DA had enough. Gloria Whitaker was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and obstruction. The town erupted. News vans lined the quiet streets of Hattiesburg. Reporters called her everything from a gold digger's victim to a black widow. Church friends stood outside the courtroom, clutching worn Bibles. Danielle refused to speak to press, but her expression as her mother was led into court said everything. Heartbreak, fury, and deep confusion. What Gloria didn't know, what no one knew, was that the case was about to take another turn. A tip came in from a bus station in Biloxi. A man matching Derek's description had been seen boarding a late-night Greyhound 3 weeks after his disappearance. He used cash, gave a false name, but the footage was grainy. The man wore a hoodie, kept his head low. Was it him? Detectives weren't sure. A nationwide alert went out. Every lead was followed, every tip verified, and yet no confirmed sightings. Had Derek survived the attack? Had he faked his death to disappear from a trail of destroyed women? Or had Gloria done the unthinkable and gotten away with hiding a body no one could find? The court case loomed, and the prosecution was confident. The evidence was circumstantial, but overwhelming. Still, without a body, the defense had an argument. Maybe Derek's alive, they said. Maybe he set her up. Maybe the Rayall story hasn't even begun. And the jury would soon have to decide. Was Gloria Whitaker a woman pushed past her breaking point, or a cold-blooded killer hiding behind sweet smiles and church dresses? One thing was certain. Whatever happened that October night was buried deeper than any grave, and the truth might never be fully unearthed. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled with curious strangers, skeptical neighbors, old church friends, and media crews clutching notepads. It had been 9 months since Derek Coleman vanished from Gloria Whitaker's quiet Mississippi home, and the mystery had only deepened. No body, no confirmed sightings, just a trail of blood, a buried knife, and a 62-year-old woman accused of murdering her 26-year-old husband. The trial of state of Mississippi versus Gloria Whitaker began with a storm of emotion. Prosecutors painted a chilling portrait. They described Derek Coleman as a manipulative drifter who had wormed his way into Gloria's life to drain her of every dollar. And the moment she discovered the truth, she snapped. They presented her journal, her internet searches, the bloody evidence from the backyard container. They leaned on motive, betrayal, financial ruin, humiliation. They argued that Gloria had grown desperate, cornered, and capable of violence. But the defense fought back. They claimed Gloria was a victim of gaslighting, of financial and emotional abuse, of psychological torment. They described Derek as a predator who targeted vulnerable older women and vanished when the heat got too high. With no body, no eyewitness, and no definitive cause of death, the defense argued that this case was built on assumptions, not facts. Danielle took the stand. She was composed but fierce. "I knew something was wrong," she said. "My mother changed." She stopped calling, stopped smiling. She was scared, but she wouldn't admit it. He isolated her from everyone who loved her. When asked if she believed her mother was capable of murder, Danielle hesitated. "I believe my mother was pushed to a place no one should ever have to go. But I also believe she knows more than she's saying." The prosecution called it a silent confession. The defense called it speculation. Then came the bombshell. Halfway through the trial, a call came into the Hattiesburg Police Department. An anonymous tip, a man claiming to have seen Derek Coleman alive in Texas. He said Derek was using a different name, working in a mechanic shop outside of Houston. He claimed he overheard him bragging about faking it all and leaving the old lady behind like she deserved. Detectives raced to verify it. They found the mechanic shop, spoke to the workers. And yes, there was a man there, calling himself Darnell King, who looked strikingly like Derek. But by the time authorities arrived, he was gone. Left the job 2 days before. No forwarding address. Just a fake ID and a story left in ashes. The judge ruled the tip admissible but reminded the jury, suspicion is not evidence. Guilt cannot be decided by a ghost in another state. The defense leaned hard into the possibility. What if Derek Coleman set this whole thing up? The attorney asked during closing arguments, what if the greatest trick he ever pulled was convincing us he was dead? But the prosecution fired back. If he's alive, where is he? Why hasn't he spoken? Why hasn't he cleared Gloria's name? They leaned into the blood, the knife, the fingerprint. That's not the work of someone being tricked. That's the work of someone trying to clean up a killing. The jury deliberated for 38 hours. And then the verdict came. Guilty of manslaughter, not guilty of murder. The courtroom erupted into gasps. Gloria sat frozen. She didn't cry. She didn't move. She just lowered her eyes as the judge handed down her sentence. 12 years in prison, eligible for parole in 6. The judge addressed her directly. Ms. Whitaker, the court believes you acted in desperation, in a situation poisoned by manipulation and control. But you took justice into your own hands. And now you must pay the price. Outside the courthouse, opinions were divided. Some called her a killer. Others called her a survivor. But most agreed on one thing. Derek Coleman had destroyed everything he touched and then disappeared like a ghost. Months passed. Gloria was transferred to a women's correctional facility just outside Jackson. She kept to herself, read books, went to chapel services, and never spoke Derek's name again. But Danielle did. She visited her mother once a month, and every time she asked the same question, "Where is he, Mama? What really happened that night?" Gloria would smile softly, reach across the table, and say, "Some things are better buried." And somewhere, out there in the vast stretch of Southern Highway and nameless towns, a man named Darnell King may still be walking free. Maybe he never died. Maybe Gloria's crime wasn't murder, but silence. Or maybe, just maybe, she buried the truth along with him. If this case gripped you like it gripped us, don't forget to subscribe to the Family Crime Exposed for more real-life stories that blur the line between victim and villain. Hit that bell icon so you never miss a story that digs deeper than the headlines.